Well, welcome to the Catholic Challenge. I'm your host, Luke Lancaster, and today we've got a special episode. Today we're going to go through an overview of Christianity and the various arguments that can be utilized to demonstrate the proof of Christianity. Now, I have three of my students with me. Starting from the right, we have Candelaria. In the middle, we have Anna. And on the left, we have Alden. Candelaria is 13, Anna's 15, and Alden is 17. So I just taught them a course this past semester on Apologetics, so different arguments for the existence of God and just all the other truths about Catholicism. And that's what we're going to cover, just an overview. So first things first is going to be God. Like, why do we believe in God's existence? So I'll direct that question to you, Candelaria. Why do you believe in God's existence?
I mean, there's so many reasons why I do, but three main arguments for God's existence be the cosmological argument for God's existence, the moral argument, and then the fine-tuning argument. Mm-hmm. So the cosmological argument for God's existence basically states that whatever begins to exist has a cause. So, for example, a flower, it obviously starts with a seed. And so when the universe began to exist 13.8 billion years ago, it had to have had a cause, and that cause is God, obviously.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, that's a good argument there. So everything that begins to exist, everything we see around us, all of it is created reality. There was a time where it didn't exist, and then, boom, then it existed. And so there was some cause for it. If my brother fell into the pool, the cause might have been me pushing him into the pool. Right? There's various causes for things, and the universe, based on science, definitely had a beginning. And so if the universe had a beginning with the Big Bang theory, if there was a Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago, that means that the universe had a cause, and so that would be God. So that's a great argument there. What was the other one that you had?
The other one would be the moral argument. So basically, if God didn't exist, objective moral values would not exist. So like when someone says, hey, that's not fair, why isn't it fair? There's not an objective moral value, there's not like a rule that says that. So that proves God's existence by just the fact that, there is a objective moral value.
So just the fact that we say something is good or something is evil, and we can't say that unless there is a God, unless there is a reference point for what goodness is. What is evil? Why would somebody say oh, that was bad or that was good? It's because God. Yeah, so that's a great argument there, and I think we demonstrate that all the time with just our regular speech, where if we say that just wasn't fair,
right.
We all are just referring to some type of rule, some type of moral basis here of the natural law, what is good, what is evil, and it's been infused into us. That's the natural law that's been given to us by God. All right, so that's the moral argument. All right, so that was the second one you gave. You have any other ones?
Right. The third is the fine-tuning argument, and basically there's a lot of things that are fine-tuned, I guess, and there's just no way that it could have been picked at random So gravity would be one of those. So if it was increased by just a little bit, stars or the sun, they wouldn't exist, and neither would we. Another one would be strong nuclear force. If this invisible force keeping atoms together was just a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, we wouldn't exist. Mass of the atom. If the mass of the proton or the electron were just a little bit larger, slightly smaller, at the Big Bang, then humanity would not exist. If the Earth were closer to the sun, it'd be too hot for life. If it were further, it'd be too cold. So we wouldn't be able to live and be humans here if it weren't for those things that were fine-tuned.
Yeah, so everything around us seems to have been designed. It seems to have been like a radio dial that put it just the right amount, and if it was just off by just a hair, if it was turned just a little bit to the right, just a hair to the left, life wouldn't exist. So it seems like there's just been multiple dials that have been perfectly tuned so that humanity could exist, and that seems to be an indication for God's existence. And you went over things like gravity, so the weight that's pulling us down to the center of the earth. That gravity is perfectly fine-tuned. What's keeping the atom together, we'll learn about that in chemistry classes. If that was just a little bit increase, a little bit decrease, all these little things perfectly fine-tuned. So yeah, that's a great argument as well. So all right, so that's those are some arguments for God's existence. What about the existence of the soul? A lot of people think that we're just material bodies, that we're just, our bodies are just physical flesh, and there's nothing invisible about us, nothing spiritual, not a spirit or a soul that has an afterlife, right? A lot of people will say, particularly atheists, that if we just die and then that's it, your existence ends. Why would we say that is a false belief, Anna?
Yeah, so I like to talk about the soul, and there are a couple main arguments, but one of them is the qualia argument, and it's saying that physical things can be observed by anyone, and we have first-person experiences. So what I experience when I taste a certain food or see something, you might have a different experience, so that shows that we're each individual. And these first-person experiences, they're non-physical, so it's something beyond just us. There's something more than material, so we must have a soul.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there, because it can't be observed underneath a microscope.
Exactly.
You can't just see like, well, he's tasting it this way, or that's his experience, the way he likes chocolate, or he likes this certain smell, makes him feel a certain way. That can't be observed, and that's just a first-person invisible experience. Or if somebody has an itch on their leg, everybody has that differently. Like, that just can't be observed physically, and so that would indicate there's something invisible, something non-material about us. That's a good one. Anything else you got?
Yes, the conceptual argument, it's kind of complicated, but basically it says that humans are the only creatures that can recognize concepts. So we will see something and say a shape, and we'll know other things that fit into that category, so we can categorize different things, but a dog, for instance, doesn't have that ability. So that just shows that there's more than material. We can think beyond this.
Yeah, so you have like an invisible category that can't be really observed. We have this idea of maybe like, what is a dog? We can differentiate between what is a dog and what is a cat, and like these are just different categories, different concepts, invisible concepts. So you see on the screen there, it's got 7 points that develop this argument for the existence of the soul. Number one, it says concepts apply to a number of material particulars. For example, like the particulars of a dog. It's kind of small, walks on 4 legs, it barks. But these concepts are universal, right? So we can apply this concept to the dog. And these material things are not universal and cannot ever become universal. So whatever possesses these concepts must be immaterial, or else the concepts wouldn't be. These concepts, like saying what is a dog, these concepts are invisible. And if we are the ones who possess these concepts, then there's some aspect of humanity that is immaterial. So the intellect, or the soul, is able to possess concepts, is able to develop these concepts of what is a dog, what is a cat, what is a flower, what is a cross, what is a table. These are all philosophical questions that indicate something invisible, something invisible about our intellect, our soul, right? So, yeah, I think that's a great point there. That's your second argument there. Do you have another one?
Yes, this is one of my personal favorites, near-death experiences, also referred to as NDE. Sometimes when a person dies and they actually are dead and they're pronounced dead medically, and then maybe 3 minutes or 10 minutes later, they come back to life. And not everybody who dies and comes back to life has these, but they might have experienced something that they wouldn't have known otherwise. Like on the third floor of a building, there might have been like crazy things, like a scratch on the window, and they could tell you this, and you wouldn't believe them, and you go and check, and it's there. Or they might have
And they were dead.
Yes, exactly. Or they might have had a sensation of floating out of their body. Reports have been heard of that. So, yeah. Blind people have these too, which is pretty crazy, because how could a blind person who's never been able to see anything have this visual image and be able to describe this with such detail? But 80% of blind people who die and then come back to life have these near-death experiences, which is really crazy. So I think that indicates that we're more than just a body, because even when we're dead, we can still have these experiences.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to the qualia argument there of first-person experiences, like the feeling of taste or your first-person experience of touch or whatever it might be. Like these things continue after death. So this invisible quality about us is continuing. And the fact that so many people have near-death experiences, and numerous scientific journals have demonstrated this. As you see there on the screen, you've got Samuel Parnia, who's a medical doctor who published a medical study on this topic. Another guy, Dr. Lammel, he published another study as well, covering multiple years, hundreds of patients. And then another doctor, Dr. Janice Holden, she combined numerous studies all into one, right? And just noticing the fact that so many people, when they die, they say that they exited their body, which immediately would suggest that we're not just a body, that we are in fact material. And I love that point about blind people have this too. Like you can't see anything, but then when they die, they leave out of their body and they can see. And then if they get resuscitated, like maybe they do, someone does CPR on them, or use an AED and shock the heart back into beating, like their soul comes back to their bodies, and they describe things like that they saw for the first time, which is an obvious argument there for the existence of the soul. The research study that published this was Dr. Kenneth Ring. This was published back in 1999, so you can check out that, where he actually says that 80% of blind people have these near-death experiences based on his personal research. You can also learn more about this topic in the book called Brain Wars, The Scientific Battle Over the Existence of the Mind and the Proof That Will Change the Way We Live Our Lives by Mario Beauregard. All right, so those are some excellent proofs for the existence of the soul. We covered qualia, concepts, and near-death experiences. So that would suggest to us that we're not just material, but immaterial, right? We're something invisible as well. All right, so we've covered now the existence of God and the existence of the soul. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to hop into the existence of Jesus, whether or not he definitely existed. So stay with us, and I'll see you then.